Hi, I'm Brig Berthold, and I work for Upstate Warrior Solution as their employment program manager. And today, I'm here to talk to you about how to handle your first year on the job. I'm going to share with you 4 tips and tricks that I really believe will make you the most successful new hire within that first year that company has ever seen. So I appreciate you being here, and I'm excited to get into this. There are 3 types of people sitting in a military transition class. We all know who they are, and we've all been one of them. You've got the first group, they're sitting back in the back on the left, and they're not happy to be there at all. They are so upset with the military at this point that it doesn't matter what good could be coming of it. They're just excited to be done. Command told them they needed to be in this class. Everything command says is garbage. They don't want to have anything to do with the military ever again, and so they're sitting there, kicked back, eyes rolled, and they're really leveraging the superpower we all have in the military of paying attention to only what is exactly necessary. You know who this is. You've seen these people. The next group, also in the back, but this group is sitting off to the right. Okay? They're not happy to be there either. They really believed that the military was going to be their entire career. And for some, it was. We're talking to people that have 20 plus years active federal service. You get your 30-year service members, things like that. But then you've got your medically retiring soldiers, sailors and airmen and Marines. You've got those people who are getting out on UCMJ action, or they failed to promote up so that they're headed out. Either way, they're not happy to be there. All they ever wanted to do was be in the military. Now that's no longer possible. They don't know what they want to do. So they're also sitting back, hands behind their heads if they could, right? Rolling their eyes and not paying attention. Then you've got your eager beavers. That's group 3. We all know the eager beavers. They're sitting in the front. There's usually 2 of them, okay? Notebooks out, furiously taking notes on everything that is said during the transition class. The first eager beaver is scared out of their wits. They do not know what they want to do with the rest of their lives. They don't know what right looks like. They are absorbing and attempting to absorb as much information as humanly possible so that they have some leg up when this thing happens to them and they have to transition. The second eager beaver, again, front row, notebook out. This person knows exactly what they want to do. They've got a whole plan. They've got goals. They know to whom they'll be accountable, which is likely going to be themselves. And they are absorbing every single piece of information coming their way because they know that in no time they're going to be able to hit the gas and start accomplishing their goals if they haven't already. They're absorbing every bit of information, trying so hard to get an edge on what they already feel they have built. Those are the 3 types of people in that transition class. Take a minute and try and remember which one were you. I was in group 2. All I ever wanted to do was be a soldier. That's it. I wanted to be in the military. And all I wanted to do was go to war. Because I always thought that if you didn't go to war, what good were you? I know better now, but for my whole life, that's how I felt. So I spent 6 years volunteering for deployments, volunteering for fire guard, everything in between, and I finally got what I wanted. I landed in Kandahar, and I spent the next year living out a version of my childhood fantasy, my childhood dream. I went to war. I went on an all-expenses-paid vacation to a combat zone with a group of friends, and it was everything I thought it was going to be until I was medically evacuated. What unifies all of the people sitting in those transition classes is that we all have to leave the military. That's what unifies all of us right now. At some point, we realize we need a job, and then most of us go on to get hired somewhere doing something for money, and sometimes it's great, sometimes it's not. Whether we love our jobs or not is irrelevant right now. That's for a discussion that we can have for a different day. What the military failed to prepare us for was what to do at that point, right? Resume classes, goal setting, update your LinkedIn profile. These are things that lots of people teach lots of different ways, and they're easy. They're easy to teach, they're easy to learn, but what they don't teach us how to do is how to jump from what is my 30-second elevator pitch to get a job to how do I change that mindset and my behavior once I do have a job. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Today I'm going to tell you some things that maybe you've never heard before, but I doubt that that's true. Mostly, I hope to remind you of the things you already know that you need to remember and apply for when you get on the job. When you first get hired, whether it's a job that's going to help pay the bills or you finally have found that career that's going to make your heart pitter-patter, there are principles you can follow that you probably already know for exactly how to handle that first year. And I'm going to give you 4 of those tips today. Your first day on the job, you have one goal. That's it. You're going to try to warmly meet as many people as possible. Make connections. Connect first. Identify something in someone's cubicle that you can talk about. That's a great way to do it. All right? Figure out if they volunteer information about yourself and wait till other people do the same thing. You need to know who you're working with, who you'll be working with, so that you can build relationships. We all want to be having wonderful friendships and wonderful relationships with the people we work with. It's not always possible, but on the very first day on the job and the first couple of days, what you need to be focused on is building relationships, figuring out who's who, and we'll get to that in a minute. But one of the things that you got to look out for is even if you see a hole or a gap or something that can be improved, that first day on the job is the wrong day to bring that up. Okay? Nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. So that's Teddy Roosevelt. He said that. So it doesn't matter whether you're direct entry level, never done anything like this before, or you come into middle management or even senior or executive management and executive leadership. If the first day on your job is not to fix anything. It's not even to identify what's wrong. No. The first thing you want to do when you get on the job is just shake hands, smile warmly, and look people in the eye. Talk about what they want to talk about. What is everyone's very favorite topic in the whole world? Themselves. So let them talk about themselves. That is an easy way to facilitate warm greetings and really start to lay a foundation for great relationships. All right, within the first week on the job, you want to start to figure out who's who in the zoo. Okay, that's the next thing you want to do over the course of that first week. Now, when you first get hired on, somebody is going to explain to you the org chart, right? They're going to say, he or she is the boss, he or she is your boss, this person does this, that person's over IT, here's the marketing department, whatever. You're going to get all of that information very quickly when you first get hired on. And you want to pay attention to that information. It's not irrelevant at all. But I want to take it a step further, okay? So before I joined the Army, someone told me that I need to figure out who the supply NCO was and then befriend that person as quickly as possible. And many of you probably know exactly why. All right, but as a new recruit, I didn't know any of that. The person who gave me this advice happened to be a supply NCO as well, so that worked out nicely. But he would tell me stories about pilots coming to him needing a piece of equipment so that they could get their bird in the air and get the hours that they needed to qualify as, instructor pilots or test pilots or whatever it may have been. And the ones that came to him entitled, the ones that had a bad reputation, the piece of equipment they needed that day often was unserviceable. Sorry, we can't give you that. It's broken. We're sending it in for whatever sort of help we need, et cetera, et cetera. You get the idea. But then another pilot would come up right behind the other one and ask for the same piece of equipment, and oh my gosh, there it is, perfectly functional, and it passed the sniff test. Here you go, take it. Good luck. So I learned that lesson really early on, and that same principle applies in the corporate world, just like it did in the military. So for those of you who were supply NCOs and things like that, you're going to really understand this. But now I want you to do it on the other side. And all the rest of us, hopefully you found a way to make friends with the IT team and the cable dogs, and you found a way to make friends with your supply NCO and things like that, because these are the people that actually run the show. So you've got in corporate America, just like in the military, you've got your leadership, right? The leadership, they're in charge. And their functional areas are management and mission accomplishment at the global level, at the, whatever level. But then there's the candy bar guy. Then there's the guy who, in the middle of absolute garbage conditions, 3 days on patrol, no resupply, low on ammo, and you could say, I need a Snicker bar so bad I'm going to die. And that guy will act like he just went over to the convenience store and grabbed you one, brought it to you. Figure out who that person is in the corporate world, and people like that. You have to have those people identified in order for this thing to go your way, okay? Do not manipulate them, treat them with respect. But if you find out that their favorite thing in the world is Dr. Pepper, then maybe every once in a while you slip them a Dr. Pepper, right? This is still the jungle here, right? Still, just because we're out of uniform doesn't mean that playground rules don't still apply, because they absolutely do. So keep bits and pieces of information in your mind and then use them. If the person's favorite thing in the world is to talk about their son's wrestling, talk about their son's wrestling. It's a great way to go. And if you're genuinely interested, they'll feel it. So be genuinely interested. If you're not, if you're just doing it to manipulate them, they're going to know that too. Don't do it that way. Find a way to be genuinely interested in them and genuinely serve them by bringing them a Dr. Pepper or whatever it is. But you got to figure out who they are first. And that first week on the job, you should be able to kind of figure that out. The best way to do this is to not avoid the break room. I know. You're probably, your direct supervisor is going to want to take you to lunch. Go to lunch. Okay? You might have executive leadership that wants to take you out, depending on your job and your function. Go to lunch with them. That's great. But the days where you don't have anything booked, pack a lunch and go to the break room. Don't even, if you can avoid leaving to go grab a burger and then bring it back, or whatever the circumstances are, do it. Pack a lunch, go to the break room if at all possible. You're going to figure out who's who in the zoo way, way, way faster if you're in the break room. All right, quick recap. Day 1, form personal connections. Warmly greet as many people as possible. Within the first week, you got to identify who's who in the zoo, not only on the org chart, but who actually runs the ship, right? That's step number 2. Step number 3 is within the very first month, your goal basically is going to be focusing on communication. That's it. And I'm talking communication all the way around, but specifically for today's purposes, I want you to focus on communication with your direct supervisor. Now, in the military, communication with your supervisor, the next level up in your command chain, it's very clear who's in charge. It's very clear whose job it is to set the boundaries. It's very clear what you'll be talking about, and you go down an evaluation list. It's very laid out for you. Everybody knows when it's due. Everybody knows what is going to be talked about, and all the boxes are the same every time, especially when it comes to NCOERs and OERs. But in the corporate world, those things don't exist. So what you have to do is build something like it. And the easiest way to do it without building your own OER or NCOER is just to say, hey, boss, why don't we meet and you help me figure out what my goals and priorities are? That's the very first thing you want to do. Within that first month, you need to set a battle rhythm of communication. Sometimes, and I strongly recommend it, if you can do it, once a week. Meet with your supervisor once a week. Get on the same page. Learn how each other communicates. Learn the buzzwords that they use. If they call you a direct report, maybe you want to refer to yourself that way. If you have direct reports underneath you, maybe you want to refer to them that way instead of subordinate like you did in the military. Whatever it is. You don't want to be in the corporate world calling your people Joes, though. So you got to figure out what the language is that your supervisor needs to best communicate with you. Also, you can teach your supervisor how best to communicate with you with your own language. So one of the easiest things to do coming out of the military is to realize that civilians largely, this is not universal, but a lot of civilians love to use military language. So you'll find a lot of board meetings right now, people are saying, that's on point. Or, they'll say, that's the tip of the spear. And it's this crazy thing that's happening in corporate America right now, where and it's because of what I'm telling you right now, all of this language is starting to translate over and people understand what it means to unpack that, right? Whatever. Hit the wave tops, okay? So what you're going to do, so what I recommend you do is you identify 3 different buckets, 3 priorities. You see short-term priorities and goals, mid-range priorities and goals, and long-range priorities and goals, okay? If you start talking to your supervisor with that language, I recommend using 25-meter target, 100-meter target, 300-meter target. Some supervisors are going to absolutely love that, and you'll know really quickly whether they latch onto that language or not. Doesn't matter, just figure it out, okay? So if you go to your supervisor and you say, what's my 25-meter target today or this week? What's my 100-meter target for this week or this month? What's my 300-meter target for this month or this quarter? Then you're going to start building a battle rhythm of exactly what right looks like. Now, like I said, in the military, your direct supervisor, somebody in the chain, comes to you and they say, here's when we're going to talk and this is what we're going to talk about. In the corporate world, it's not that way. What you have to do in the corporate world is set the meeting, invite the communication, but then you got to be hands off. Even though it's your meeting, It's not about you. You have to let your supervisor be in charge. Okay? That can be a really difficult thing for those of us that are coming out of the military, working with and under civilians for the very first time, is you need to be in charge of making sure the meeting happens, but not in charge of the meeting. You can facilitate that, you can manage that by ensuring that weekly communication, at least at first, happens and then if you need to adjust it beyond that, you can. And if you can put priorities and goals into those three buckets, 25 meter, 100 meter, 300 meter, then this builds on itself. Because when they inevitably, and this is going to happen no matter what, when they come to you and they say, hey, I need you to do this, you can say, all right, look, here's a 25 meter target that you've just given me. Which of my existing 25 meter targets am I going to move to the 100 meter range? Okay, which short-term priority gets moved to mid-range priority because of this new task item? Okay? If you can set those communication strategies, then they're going to understand exactly what you mean, and you'll have it laid out. Here are my buckets, sir or ma'am or whatever. Here are my buckets. I can't. This one's full, all right, but this one's not. Or this one's full, but my long-range stuff isn't. So I got to move some stuff around, or we got to get rid of one of these. What is it going to be? If you have it established that you only have so much bandwidth, which they know anyway, they're just going to forget. But if you already have it established, then it's going to work pay off huge for you if you can say, which one do you want me to let go of or push back, okay? But I really do believe that having that language built up is going to be enabling all of this growth, okay? And that will just make your relationship better, and everything gets better. The coolest thing is when your supervisor comes to you and says, hey, I got a new 25 meter target for you. If that happens, pay dirt, because now you've taught them how you best communicate, and you really do have a groundwork laid out. Everything is moving pretty slick by that point. All right, the next thing we have to get into, okay, is year one. Within the first year, something will happen invariably. You're going to deal with imposter syndrome. I don't know how many of you have ever come across the term imposter syndrome, but basically what it means is you're going to feel like a fraud. You're going to wonder, why in the world did these people hire me? I'm not good enough at this. I don't really even understand my role. I don't understand my capacity to handle these task items. I'm not even sure what my tools are. It could be so bad eventually that you literally think, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I don't have a clue, okay? When you get into those moments and you spin out a little bit, because it's going to happen, especially if it's your very, very first role outside the military. There's no way around it. It's going to happen, okay? Even seasoned executives who've been out of the military for years and years, or who never served in the military, they still deal with this, okay? Within that first 6 months to a year, if you don't feel a little bit like a fraud, then you're one of the lucky ones. And I've never met anybody like that. Or you're way understationed and you need to be in a job that pushes you a little bit. But that's different. So when that happens, when you start to feel like a fraud, you need to remember that this happens to everybody. It's not uncommon. That's the first thing you have to remember. And that it's okay. It's okay to spin out a little bit. It's okay to freak out. It's okay to wonder why in the world they hired you to do this thing that they hired you to do anyway. And by the way, I can't even remember what it was they hired me to do. It's okay. Hopefully, you can go back to who's who in the zoo that you built within that first month and understand who to go to for that. Who do you need to seek for help? Who can give you a clear task item? Who can give you some encouragement or support? Or who can talk to you about what the goals of the organization are, and you can find your way back into that goal structure, okay? By knowing who's who in the zoo that you built in the first month, all right, and then going back to those personal connections that you built within day one and week one, man, I'm telling you, you're going to have people, you're going to have a team of support ready at your disposal, ready to go. And that's the goal of this whole thing, right? The goal of the whole thing is, as you get through that first year, you should know who does what well, regardless of their job description, and how that can help you, how you can help them with that, okay? And then on top of that, where you fit into this larger structure, because you built a reputation for yourself now, okay? So you want to build a reputation. You want to know who's who in the zoo and how they can help you get your job done, how you can help them get their job done. Because really, one fight, one team should still carry over from the military service to civilian workforce. Okay, so don't forget that. All that stuff still applies. All right. Now, my good friend and former Army NCO Josh Fryer always says, if they're dumb enough to hire you, then you're smart enough to figure it out. And that's really stuck with me. Just think about that for a minute. If these people are dumb enough to hire you to do a job that you feel completely incapable of doing, then you are plenty smart enough of finding zero, grounding yourself, and figuring it out. You got this. You absolutely got this. We've covered a lot. We've moved really, really fast. The last thing I want you to know, I'm going to end with two things. First, there are a lot of people in the world trying to help you get a job, trying to help you keep your job, and then trying to help you get a better job, okay? And find the career that will make your heart pitter-patter. That's what I do all day, every day, all right? When I'm teaching those resume classes, or I'm giving advice on LinkedIn, or I'm doing interview prep, or whatever it is, that's what I do all day, every day. But while I'm also advocating for you on the corporate side. So people like me, we go out into the world and we say, man, you should hire veterans. They're awesome. They really are. They're awesome for all these reasons, okay? What we need from you is to know that we can't do this without you. We can't. Okay? We can't advocate on behalf of hiring veterans to these companies that say they want to and then get burned on the back end. All right? So the second thing you need to know is that we all have to help each other. All right? First, a lot of people trying to help you get a job. Second, we all have to help each other. If you go into that job and don't perform, if you don't show up on time, and if you continue to fail to meet the standard, then you're going to make it hard for everyone else on this call right now. Everyone else watching this video. Everyone else listening to what I'm saying. Okay? If we're a vet and we're all trying to find a job, one vet can make it really hard for everybody else to find the next job. All right? So there is sort of this idea of we're all in it together. We have to work together. We have to build this brand of veteran. We have to understand that we're all in it to support one another. The best thing you can do is remember how great you already are. All right? You're more resilient than many of your civilian counterparts have ever been and will ever be. Okay? You have been through more hardship with less support and higher standards than almost anyone you'll ever work with. You already have excellent communication skills. You know how to lead. You know how to be led. You understand the way your actions affect other people and the larger mission as a whole. And I'm telling you right now, those are the soft skills that companies are looking for. On top of, please show up on time. Please do the work we've assigned you to do. Everything else is the things I've just said. Communicate honestly and openly. Be resilient. Help us accomplish the mission as a team. So be the best. Be the best, because you already know how. You've already got it in you. Do not take no for an answer, even from yourself, okay? Because if you can bring everything you really do have to the table, then you will be the best hiring decision they've ever made. Ever. So go forth and do good things. Be the best.